Start talking at home. Elara often felt a knot in her stomach whenever English class began. The grammar rules seemed endless, the vocabulary vast and intimidating. She longed to speak fluently, to express herself without hesitation, but the thought of starting conversations filled her with dread. Her dream felt miles away, shrouded in a fog of uncertainty and self-doubt. One afternoon, while sipping tea, her grandmother offered a simple, yet profound, piece of advice. "Why not start talking at home?" she suggested kindly. "No pressure, just you and your thoughts. Begin with simple sentences, describing your day, your feelings, or even objects around you." Elara was skeptical but decided to try. Her grandmother then added, "And the best way to make it fun is to learn English through stories. Find tales that truly captivate you, tales of adventure, mystery, or even simple everyday life. Immerse yourself completely." So, Elara started small. She narrated her breakfast preparations aloud, describing the crunch of cereal and the pour of milk. Then, she found a children's storybook online, focusing on simple narratives first. This gentle beginning felt much less intimidating than classroom pressures. The stories became her secret garden. She devoured tales of brave knights and mischievous fairies, often pausing to look up unfamiliar words. The plotlines helped her deduce meanings, making vocabulary acquisition feel like an exciting treasure hunt, rather than a tedious chore. She discovered classic fairy tales, then moved on to short contemporary fiction. Each story introduced new sentence structures and idiomatic expressions naturally. Elara found herself eagerly anticipating her next reading session, a joy she never associated with learning English before. As her confidence slowly grew, her grandmother suggested another step. "Now, let's explore how to talk to people in pairs. Find a friend, perhaps someone from your class who also wants to improve. Practicing with a partner changes everything for the better." Elara hesitated, but then thought of Leo, a quiet classmate who seemed to share her struggles. She mustered her courage and asked him if he'd be interested in practicing English together, perhaps once a week after school. To her surprise, he agreed immediately. Their first few sessions were awkward, filled with long pauses and hesitant sentences. But they persevered, encouraged by a shared goal. They began by retelling the stories Elara had been reading, using simplified language to ensure mutual understanding and comfortable communication. "Remember to listen and practice," Leo's tutor had advised him, a tip they both adopted wholeheartedly. They would listen to audiobooks together, then pause to discuss character motivations, plot twists, and new vocabulary. This dual approach proved remarkably effective. They role-played everyday scenarios, ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, planning a hypothetical trip. These exercises forced them to think on their feet, transforming theoretical knowledge into practical, usable language. Their fluency began to blossom rapidly. Elara noticed a significant improvement in her comprehension skills. Listening to native speakers, even in simplified stories, attuned her ear to the rhythm and intonation of English. This active listening made speaking feel more natural, less like a puzzle. Leo, in turn, became more confident in expressing his thoughts, often surprising Elara with his insightful comments during their discussions. Their pair practice created a safe, supportive environment where mistakes were learning opportunities, not reasons for embarrassment. One evening, while searching for a new story, Elara stumbled upon an article titled, "Why You Must Read English." It emphasized how reading expands vocabulary exponentially, improves grammar intuitively, and builds a deeper understanding of cultural nuances. The article resonated deeply with her current experience. She realized that her story reading habit was not just enjoyable, but profoundly effective. It was passively absorbing complex sentence structures and varied expressions, making them feel natural over time. Why reading is important became her new mantra. She started reading beyond just stories, venturing into simplified news articles and blog posts about her hobbies. This broadened her exposure to different genres and factual reporting, enriching her language further. She started keeping a reading journal, noting down new phrases and interesting sentence constructions. This active engagement with the text solidified her learning, transforming passive consumption into deliberate, focused skill acquisition. Her progress accelerated noticeably. Elara actively sought out different genres, from science fiction to historical fiction. Each genre presented its own set of vocabulary and stylistic conventions, challenging her to adapt and expand her linguistic repertoire in exciting and unexpected ways. The advice on how to learn English began to crystallize for Elara. It wasn't about rote memorization or endless grammar drills, it was about immersion, active engagement, and finding joy in the process. Her approach became holistic and far more effective. She started experimenting with different learning methods, flashcards for tricky vocabulary, watching English movies with subtitles, then without. Each new technique added another layer to her understanding, making her learning journey dynamic and engaging. One day, Leo suggested they try a very interesting story podcast he found, specifically designed for English learners. It was a multi-episode mystery series with engaging characters and a compelling plot. They were hooked from the very first minute. The podcast featured clear narration and included transcripts, allowing them to both listen and read simultaneously. This multi-sensory input reinforced vocabulary and pronunciation, making the learning experience incredibly immersive and highly enjoyable for both of them. They would pause the podcast frequently, discussing theories about the mystery and practicing their predictions in English. This interactive listening fostered deeper engagement and encouraged spontaneous conversation, pushing their speaking skills to new heights. The story was indeed captivating, keeping them on the edge of their seats with every twist and turn. They found themselves eagerly awaiting the next episode, making English learning a highly anticipated leisure activity rather than a dreaded academic task. As their fluency grew, Elara developed a new ambition. She admired the sophisticated sound of certain English speakers she encountered online. "Let's talk in British English," she declared to Leo one afternoon, a new challenge sparking in her eyes. Leo, initially amused, agreed to join her. They started listening to British podcasts and watching British TV shows. They paid close attention to pronunciation, intonation, and common British idioms, trying to mimic the sounds and rhythms. It was a challenging but fun endeavor. They practiced subtle differences in vowel sounds and explored regional accents playfully. Sometimes they sounded comical, but their laughter made the learning process even more enjoyable and memorable for them. They even started incorporating British slang into their conversations, much to the amusement of their families. Words like brilliant, cheers, and mate became part of their everyday English repertoire, adding an authentic flavor to their speech. This focused effort on British English not only refined their accent but also deepened their understanding of cultural nuances. They learned about British humor, history, and social etiquette through the language itself, a truly enriching experience. There were moments of frustration, of course. Sometimes Elara would think, why you should not learn English. The sheer complexity of irregular verbs or the nuances of tenses felt overwhelming, leading to temporary periods of self-doubt and despair. Is it really worth all this effort? She'd sometimes ponder after a particularly difficult practice session. The thought of giving up would briefly flicker in her mind, a quiet whisper suggesting it was too much work for uncertain rewards. But then she'd remember the joy of understanding a complex story or the thrill of a smooth conversation with Leo. The feeling of progress, of unlocking new worlds, always quickly overshadowed any fleeting negative thoughts she experienced. The world of literature, films, and international communication that was now accessible to her was far too vast and exciting to abandon. English was no longer just a subject, it was a key to countless opportunities and new connections globally. One day, a visiting English speaker from London came to their school. Elara, with newfound confidence, approached him and initiated a conversation. She surprised herself with how naturally the words flowed, her British accent shining through. The visitor praised her fluency and her authentic accent, an incredible validation of all her hard work. This interaction filled her with an immense sense of accomplishment and further solidified her belief in her chosen learning path. Leo, equally proud, observed her interaction. Their shared journey had transformed them both, not just linguistically but personally. They were no longer timid students but confident communicators, ready to embrace new challenges together. They continued their "start talking at home" routine, finding comfort and continued improvement in daily low-pressure conversations. It served as a consistent foundation, a safe space to experiment with new vocabulary and grammar structures. The power of "learn English through stories" remained central to their method. They explored classic novels, adapting them into their own simplified versions for practice, which further deepened their understanding and retention of complex plots. Their "How to Talk to People in Pairs" sessions evolved. They moved beyond retelling stories to debating current events, sharing personal opinions, and even planning imaginary entrepreneurial ventures entirely in English, pushing their critical thinking. Listen and practice continued to be a non-negotiable part of their routine. They expanded their listening diet to include academic lectures and interviews, preparing themselves for future opportunities that required higher levels of comprehension. The importance of "why you must read English" became increasingly apparent. They realized that reading provided a constant source of new input, far beyond what speaking or listening alone could offer, enriching their linguistic repertoire significantly. Why reading is important was now ingrained in their learning philosophy. They saw reading as not just a learning tool but a gateway to knowledge, culture, and diverse perspectives, fostering intellectual growth alongside language acquisition. Their understanding of how to learn English was complete and refined. It was a continuous cycle of input, reading, listening, and output, speaking, writing, fueled by curiosity, consistency, and a willingness to embrace mistakes as learning opportunities. They even began writing their own short stories, inspired by the Very Interesting Story podcast. This creative outlet allowed them to apply all their acquired knowledge, from vocabulary to sentence structure, in a personally meaningful way. Their commitment to "Let's talk in British English" never wavered. They refined their pronunciation further, focusing on subtle nuances and regional variations, aiming for even greater authenticity and precision in their spoken language. The initial apprehension about why you should not learn English was now a distant memory. The immense benefits far outweighed any fleeting difficulties, confirming that the decision to persevere was one of the best they had ever made. Elara found herself offering advice to younger students struggling with English, sharing her journey and encouraging them to adopt similar strategies. She became a mentor, inspiring others with her success story and practical tips. Her teachers noticed a dramatic transformation. Elara, once hesitant and shy, now participated actively in class discussions, offering thoughtful insights and engaging confidently with complex topics presented in English. Leo, too, flourished. His quiet demeanor gave way to articulate expression, and he found new confidence not just in English but in all his academic pursuits. Their partnership had truly empowered them both beyond just language. They realized that learning English was not merely about mastering a language, it was about opening doors to new cultures, connecting with people from around the globe, and expanding their own understanding of the world exponentially. The journey had been challenging, yet incredibly rewarding. Every story read, every conversation practiced, every mistake learned from, contributed to the confident, articulate individuals they had become through dedicated effort. From hesitant beginnings at home, armed with simple stories, to engaging in complex debates with a polished British accent, Elara and Leo exemplified the power of a systematic, joyful approach to language acquisition, inspiring many. They proved that learning English doesn't have to be a daunting task. With the right strategies, starting small, finding interesting content, and practicing consistently, anyone can achieve fluency and confidence, just like them. Their story became a testament to perseverance and passion. They discovered that the most effective learning happens when it's integrated into your life, when it's fun, and when you have a supportive partner by your side. So, if you're wondering how to learn English, just remember Elara and Leo. Start at home, dive into stories, find a partner, and listen actively. Your English journey awaits, full of exciting discoveries and endless possibilities.